Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to our English News Edition. Coming to you from Canal, Algérie, to the headlines. Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdulrahman presents at the National People's Assembly the government's general policy based on major political and institutional reforms. The Army General Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Saïd Chingriha, pays a working and inspection visit to Jilfa province, belonging to the 1st Military Region, where he supervises different activities. And ahead of the Arab Summit to be hosted by Algeria next November, Jordanians and Tunisians voiced their high expectations for the success of this major event. And we wrap up our news edition with celestial musical notes marking the closing ceremony of the Malou Festival in Constantine province. Good evening, those were today's headlines. First in our news, Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdulrahman presented at the National People's Assembly on Monday the government's policy statement, which is an assessment of the government's achievements over the past year. More details with Manal Ammari.
The plenary session dedicated to this presentation was presided over by the President of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, in the presence of members of the government, followed by a general debate, then the Premier's answers to questions raised by the MPs. Ayman bin Abdulrahman affirmed that the government action focused on dialogue and consultation with all the economic actors and social partners to guarantee the success of the extensive political and institutional reforms within the edification process of the new Algeria, introduced by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. Despite the difficult situation that the country went through due to the impact of the economic, environmental and geopolitical context on the international level, the government's determination to honor these commitments for the implementation of its action plan, drawn from the 54 commitments of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. The government's action plan focused on dialogue and consultation with all the economic actors and social partners, namely the civil society, within the framework of a participatory process aiming to guarantee the success of the building process of the new Algeria. The difficult circumstances that Algeria faced did not discourage the state's determination to preserve its social character that was called by the President of the Republic as a rooted doctrine that the state will never forsake. These efforts will continue to set up measures to revive the economic activity, to lighten the burden on the affected companies and supporting the citizens' purchasing power. In this regard, the annual budget allocated to social transfers exceeded 5 billion dinars. In the year 2021, the Algerian economy witnessed a 4.7% increase rate. The budgetary revenues increased by 15.5%. Budgetary expenditures also increased by 7.6%. As a reminder, at the end of August 2022, the national trade balance recorded a $14 billion excess, and Algerian hydrocarbon exports almost reached $4 billion, or a 42% increase rate. As part of its noble constitutional missions, in light of the directives and guidelines of the President of the Republic, Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, and in view of the regional and international geopolitical context, the National People's Army aims to mobilize all the necessary human and material resources and meeting all the conditions for the development and reinforcement of the capacities of the national defense system. The National People's Army works to secure the borders and the preservation of territorial sovereignty through the consolidation of surveillance and protection devices deployed at land borders, maritimes and airspaces, as well as the fight against terrorism and cross-border organized crime. The National People's Army also strengthened its capacities in the field of cyber defense and the fight against all forms of electronic crimes, as well as the intensification of military cooperation, namely with Sahel countries, the support of the economic fabric through diversified partnerships, as well as the creation of new institutions. The National People's Army participated in rescue operations and assisted the population during natural disasters that the country went through recently. We should all be proud of our valiant army wear the air of the glorious National Liberation Army. For his part, and in a statement, the President of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, stated that Algeria is walking down the path of real democratic practices promised by the President of the Republic. Algeria is moving forward on the path of the real democratic practices promised by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. The presentation of the government's general policy is an important proof of the concretization of the political willingness and moving to action. The principle of the separation of powers, as well as institutions that assume their constitutional functions, is the core of the Democratic Act and is what separates a society that lives on empty slogans and a society that is putting things in place and creating a conscious shift and a historical turn in a special global context. After the presentation of the government's general policy statement made by Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman, a general debate was initiated by the MPs. Then the executive chief answered their questions.
The Army General Saeed Chingriha, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, paid on Monday a working and inspection visit to Jilfa province belonging to the 1st Military Region, where he supervised the inauguration ceremony of new fuel supply units, which strengthened the National People's Army Battle Corps. Rania Al-Bahri tells us more.
After the welcoming ceremony, the General of the Army, accompanied by the Commander of the 1st Military Region and Central Directors of the Ministry of National Defense and the General Staff of the National People's Army, proceeded to the inauguration of the central establishment for the supply of fuel materials in Jilfa province. Subsequently, the Army General followed a detailed presentation on this sensitive establishment and the missions assigned to it within the fuel supply system of the various military units and formations deployed in the area before the inspection of various services, infrastructures and workshops that this establishment includes and receive information about the tasks assigned to them. The Army General then proceeded to the inauguration of the Fuel Techniques Training Center located on the same site, where he followed a presentation on the said center and its missions, particularly in terms of training, before inspecting its various educational and life infrastructures and receiving clarifications presented by the persons in charge of the center. Subsequently, the Army General went to the regional fuel supply warehouse, where he supervised the ceremony of its inauguration and visited its various annexes and infrastructures. He also inquired about the readiness of his equipment and installations before giving the personnel and executives of this unit guidelines and firm instructions relating to the imperative of preserving this vital asset, to ensure compliance with the security measures and to carry out the assigned missions with seriousness and rigor. At the end, the Army General held a meeting with the executives and personnel of the 3 inaugurated units, where he delivered an orientation speech, at the start of which he emphasized the importance given by the National People's Army High Command to the fuel support units, which it described as arteries that supply the battle corps with energy and whose management must be shrewd, while preserving it and exploiting it with the necessary mastery and nationalism. We are totally convinced that the aptitude of the soldier and his moral, psychological and civic disposition depend greatly on the competence of the logistics networks with this vital material and on the credibility of their operation. Wars were and always remain wars of supply and resources, and the victory would be reserved only for the one who knows how to organize these resources and make them arrive at the right time at the different levels of the forces, while working on the rationalization of their management, their preservation, and their operation with all skills and relevance. As such, the High Command of the National People's Army grants the central direction of fuels the importance that befits it, in particular through the new achievements which constitute an important cornerstone capable of contributing effectively to the permanent optimization of the ready state of our battle corps. General of the Army emphasized the need to confer more integration of roles and synergy of efforts between the different types of forces and logistics structures with all its branches in order to anchor the character of efficiency in performance and to acquire the quality of adapting permanently to the operational requirements imposed by the field. We have also ensured, as part of cross-development process of the National People's Army, to bring integration to the roles and synergy of efforts between the different types of forces and logistics structures with all these branches, to the effect of anchoring the character of efficiency in performance and of demonstrating the ability to adapt judicially and permanently to the operational requirements imposed by the field and by hasty or decided developments. Success in this vital mission requires giving ultimate importance to the meticulous and objective definition of the real current and future needs of the battle course of the National People's Army. This success is also based on strict compliance with storage standards and safety and protection rules in accordance with the standards in force in this field. At the end, the General of the Army gave the floor to the personnel belonging to the three units to express their concerns and present their suggestions. As such, they reiterated their firm determination to carry out their sensitive missions with dedication and loyalty in the service of their country and their valiant people. At the end of the visit, the General of the Army signed the visitor's book of the inaugurated units.
With a good and sufficient management of modernized ports, Algeria will double the volume of commercial exchanges with more than $90 billion through these ports by the end of the year. The transport costs will be reduced, favoring the competitiveness of the economy and thus the creation of job opportunities and wealth. Najah Tayyar has the details.
The promotion of foreign trade and the diversification of exports require basic structures, in particular modern ports. Algeria has a challenge of having modern ports that can respond to the new economic dynamics that the country is experiencing, because Algeria has the capacity to become an important center of international trade, in particular between Africa and Europe, which will make it an important transit point between the two continents. Whether in terms of export or import, we must not forget that Algeria is already equipped with large modern ports such as the port of Dindin, Ghazawat, Bijaya or that of Algiers. The optimal exploitation of the Algerian ports in recent years has made it possible to double the volume of trade with Algeria's partners. It is true we have reduced imports, but you should know that very soon we will have ports that will be able to strengthen export activity. It is important to note that the exports have increased to no less than $60 billion by the end of the year, and around $33 billion of imports or $100 billion of goods passing through our ports. A major challenge accompanying the gradual increase of the non-hydrocarbon exports and the modernization of port operations.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ramtan Lamamra, received on Monday John Mulimba, the Ugandan Minister of State for Foreign Affairs in charge of regional cooperation, who is on a working visit to Algeria. The talks were an opportunity to reiterate the willingness that the President Abdelmajid Tebboune and the President Yoweri Museveni share to work on strengthening the historical ties of brotherhood and cooperation binding Algeria and Uganda. The countdown begins for the 31st Arab Summit. This major event that Algeria is hosting, the 1st and 2nd of upcoming November, a unifying summit amid the current global events and challenges facing the Arab nation. Primarily the Palestinian cause, Arab peoples are looking forward to the success of this event. Case in point in Jordan and Tunisia, with these statements gathered by our special envoys in this story taken up by Najah Tayyar.
With great optimism, the Jordanians await for the success of the Arab Summit at the beginning of the upcoming November in Algeria. We hope that this Arab Summit will take place in the most favorable conditions. The Arab countries must show solidarity at the beginning of the next November in Algeria. We are waiting for the next Arab Summit planned in Algeria. We hope that decisions that will be taken will be beneficial. Not only the Jordanians, also the Tunisians have great hopes in the Algiers summit, which will allow the Arab leaders to take decisions on the Arab issues and establish a common roadmap to strengthen the Arab unity. We hope the Arab summit will be a success and unite the Arab countries, and we wish that it would come out with a solution to the Palestinian cause. We expect this summit to be successful with great decisions and unite the Arab countries to be a global economic power. The goal we seek of the Arab summit is to unite us as Arabs. Crucial challenges await the Arab leaders, particularly on the economic level. The situation in the Arab world requires the stepping up of efforts to achieve the unification of ranks. The Palestinian cause will also be a key point during the Algiers agenda. We call on our brother, the president of the summit, and on all Arab leaders to address the Palestinian issue in the first place, a subject that concerns all Arabs. The Algiers summit will mark another stage in the Arab joint action, particularly in favor of the Palestinian cause.
The African Football Confederation unveiled the game schedule for the 2023 CHAN Championship to be hosted by Algeria. The opening match due to bring together the host team to Libya will be held on January 13th in Baraki Stadium. 4 days later, the Desert Warriors will take on Ethiopia, Then they end the group stage on January 21st by facing Mozambique, always in the same stadium. Let's hope all the best for our national team. And we wrap up our news edition with this celestial music, which marked the closing ceremony of the Malou Festival in Constantine Province, to the great joy of these Indonesian style lovers. Let's enjoy with them these moments, and bye-bye.